There we go. All righty. Welcome everybody to the February 2022 meeting of the Community Preservation Committee, calling to order at 7:34. I will try to watch the wait room in case somebody else comes in. Hope everybody is well. And I will just run through our agenda for the record. And I'll kind of try to stick to it in order in case people come in later. First is up warrant articles for the Maytown meeting. Then also our annual report, which I drafted and sent out, and I hope people have had a chance to see. Project updates, there's a bunch. There's Metacomic, Greenway feasibility study, the housing production plan, the senior center shade pavilion, pond treatments, anything else that pops up as needed. Information on the CPA match this year, which is actually great. Minutes for 12/1, and then anything unanticipated. So first on the agenda, warrant articles. Obviously the first two are our standard ones, the 15,000 for administrative and operating budget, which of course is never comes out to 15,000 because we can only do 5%, but we always just over reserve or over warrant. Second is the 10% allocations. And then third is a potential weed treatment program for other bodies of water in Norfolk. I would think that have not already been addressed. So.
Did you get my email tonight?
I did. Yep,
Okay.
I printed it out. I have it. So when we get to that one, I will read it and you can embellish on it.
Oh.
So just for formality's sake, I'll read the first two standard articles and we'll vote on them because I have to submit them, obviously. Oh, I don't know when the deadline is. Articles due February 11. Okay, so the first one, to see if the town will vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44B, Section 5, which I don't have a section symbol, to appropriate the sum of $15,000 for the annual revenues in the Community Preservation Fund, from the annual revenues in the Community Preservation Fund for the purpose of funding the administrative and operating budget for the Community Preservation Committee, or take any other relative action. Voila. So among the board, I guess first, any discussion on that?
So move.
All right, well, let me ask first.
No.
There's a Judy here, so I'll just ask, and Donna, if there's anyone who from the audience that has any questions or comments, or from the board. Okay.
Donna does not have a comment on this article.
Thank you. All right, so a motion has been made. Is there a second on this article?
Second.
No further discussion. We have to do a roll call vote. I've been reminded by Ms. Carol Green on Zoom. So I'll start. Cindy Andrade, aye.
All aye.
Dave Jury, aye.
Bob Paschke, aye.
Harry Searle, aye.
Peter, you chimed in, right? There he is. You're muted, by the way.
You're muted.
Peter Diamond, aye.
Okay. All right, so that is first one. Second one, to see if the town will vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44B, to reserve a sum of money equal to the state mandated minimum amount of 10% from fiscal year 2022 Community Preservation Fund revenues for the future appropriation of open space creations, acquisitions, preservation. 10% from fiscal year 2022 Community Preservation Fund revenues for the future appropriation of affordable housing creations, preservations, and support. And 10% from fiscal year 2022 Community Preservation Fund revenues for the future appropriation. Oh, typo here. towards the acquisition, preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration of historic resources, or take any other action relative there too. I fixed my typo. Discussion from the board. Discussion from any guests. Okay, hearing none, I will take a motion
Motion.
made by,
Paul Terrio.
thank you, Paul. Is there a second?
Second,
Second.
Okay, 2 seconds.
Gary one.
Gary one and Bob two. Any further discussion? All in favor, roll call vote. Cindy Andrade, aye.
Paul,
Dave
aye.
Terry, aye.
Will Rigdon,
Paskey,
aye.
aye.
Okay,
Peter Diamond, I.
all right. we've
Gary
all-
Searle, aye.
All right, we've all eyed in. All right, so the third one is a rough draft. Had discussions with Dave in the past about funding a weed control program for other water bodies in Norfolk, kind of like the ones that have been done on Highland Lake and City Mills, and then the one that was passed at Fall Town Meeting for the 10 acres of Mirror Lake that's in Norfolk. I'll speak for Dave and he can chime in, but he was hoping to get a actual proposal, hopefully maybe by today, but that didn't come in. So I just drafted up a rough warrant article with a lot of X's and such as a placeholder to be flushed out later, flushed out relatively speaking. And so Dave had sent me an email, but I have to find it. Well, anyway, I know I printed it out, Dave. So basically you were proposing.
Yeah, he said not to exceed $50,000 annually. And that's a wag at this point until we get the final quote in, which should be by the end of the week. And it'll also include private bodies as an amendment to the quote. And if private owners would like to participate in this pricing, then we would charge, the town would charge them for the treatment, but it would be under one contract with the winning bid.
Okay, so they would get to benefit from the pricing that the town receives.
Yes, yeah,
So that would
that's the
be,
intent.
so the one that comes to my mind, I think that's privately owned is Callahan. Callahan's-
Yeah, and King Philip Trail, that pond,
Okay, I'm not familiar.
by
Man
Fell
Pond?
Point or whatever, yeah,
Man's
I
Pond,
mean, Highland Lake?
Highland
No.
Lake.
Man's Pond.
No, isn't Highland Lake privately owned too?
No, Highland Lake we already did, or is,
Yeah, but it's yeah,
no, that's town owned. All of Highland Lake is town owned.
oh, okay.
So what's the name of it, Peter?
Man's Pond.
Oh, Man's Pond, yeah.
Oh, but the one by on Lawrence Street.
No, that's
No,
on Seekonk
that's-
Street.
Yeah, Bush Pond is on.
It's behind Norfolk Auto Repair,
Yeah.
across from the prison. There's a
Oh,
way.
okay, yeah, yeah.
So Dave, explain how this would work for the private water owners?
We would charge them back. We would charge them for the treatments and they would pay us and it going back into the general fund of the town.
So
So,
you want to front money to them to do the pond treatments?
Well, we'll get the buy-in before we would treat them. I mean, they have to give us permission. But yeah, because of the
you mean
water
that
chestnut problem and invasive plants, it doesn't make sense to do just a few ponds. We've got to take care of all of our ponds,
Well,
plus
no, I
being
get
talking
that,
to
but
the other communities.
yeah, I get that. What I'm trying to understand, Dave, is you say, hey, look at all the ponds in town, right?
Yeah,
And they come back with a price. And then you say to the property owners, in order, so you have, your price for this is XYZ, okay? And, we would need that upfront before we did your pond. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yes.
All right, well, I
And
don't
they
think-
would have to commit for what, 3 years?
Whatever the quotes are. And what we would do is have an information meeting with them and say, hey, here's what conservation is planning, and explain how much their part would be. And they can say yay or nay that they want to participate. And if this is approved at a town meeting, then yeah, we'd set it up and say, okay, you agreed to treat your pond. It's, $1,000 of treatment. We need the first $1,000 from you.
All right, I think though that we can't include an amount of money for any private water bodies in a warrant article. So that would kind of be between conservation and the private water body owners.
Could the article be more general to treat water bodies within Norfolk and just give a price and not list each one? So that would cover us?
I think.
Because
you would
we only have like a $15,000 budget.
I think I think it would, I mean, I'd have to check, but I think it would have to be worded, town-owned water bodies. And then any agreement that you make with the
Oh, okay, separate.
would be separate but not,
Okay,
yeah. And I think what I would say, because I don't know all the names of all the town water bodies, is the way I would suggest, or that I'm thinking that it could be worded, would be to treat all water, all water bodies, however you want to phrase that, ponds
Public,
and lakes,
yeah.
owned by the town of Norfolk, and I would say excluding those that have already been treated, Highland Lake, City Mills, Mirror Lake. Because those are already covered.
Through the 23 year.
Mirror Lake is a
Sure.
5-year program. City
Yeah.
Mills and Highland Lake were a 3 to 5 year.
Yeah,
So that those can go up to 5 years.
okay,
And hopefully at the end of 5 years, they're pretty well set, or you'll
yeah,
come back with another proposal to do ongoing.
Yeah.
treatments. Remember, we can't
Yeah.
do maintenance, we can do the restoration, and this
yeah.
all
This is
been
restoration.
restoration because we're treating them all for the first time.
Yeah. After this meeting, I'll send the committee a list of the ponds, just so you know what they are in town. We put a list together.
Is Bush Pond over here online?
I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if it's town owned or not, and I can't.
We have Kingsbury Pond.
Oh, yeah, Kingsbury. I think
I
at
had
least
one-
part of Bush Pond is. I'm not
Town
sure. it all
pond.
is.
I had once been approached about Populatic, so I know the owners around there were interested in having it done.
And that's
Populatic,
town
yeah.
owned, right?
I don't know.
I think so. I'm thinking it is. But I'm not sure. I don't think it's privately owned because that's part of the Charles River. Charles
Yeah.
River goes through, it puddles up in Populatic and then goes onward. So I suspect it's not privately owned, like Callahan's was an old farm pond, I think. So it's owned by all the abutters. Well, anyway, all right.
So Cindy, to be clear, none of this money can go towards privately owned privately owned bodies of water.
I don't believe so.
So when we funded the rent situation, that went to private people, right?
It went, no, because we own the 10 acres, no, excuse me, Norfolk owns the 10 acres in Norfolk. The Mirror Lake, the Friends of Mirror Lake came forward with the proposal to treat it. But that is
No, I'm talking about when we funded the rent.
COVID.
supplement. The
The
rent,
COVID subsidy, is that what you're referring to, Peter?
yeah, for helping people with their rent. And those were to,
That was a
Private.
special case through the state though, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was through affordable housing. It wasn't. I mean, it's all
I'm
the
trying to
affordable
show an
housing,
example of where money was spent to benefit, not something that Norfolk owned directly.
right?
Well,
I
but
mean,
that's, what do you call it? The Grange.
yeah,
Town's
I don't
not-
know. I'd have to check and see if we can do, I mean, I'm open to checking to see if we can do private water bodies.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, Peter, on the Grange, we maintain, there's a lien on that property.
Right.
The preservation
Extends, I think,
restriction,
for over, a restriction that
right?
it's in place for like 50 years or something.
And
So-
similar to affordable housing, all of that also comes with restrictions.
Yeah.
Because
I'm just thinking all bodies of water kind of intermingle with each other. So if we treat one and we don't treat the one in between, water's gonna flow from that one down to the ones with. And
Yeah, I mean, like Bristol Blake is Stony Brook River, and it's owned by the Department of Corrections.
and they did their
so-
own treatment there,
Yeah, but just as an example,
is an example,
Oh.
yeah.
yeah. But I'll send you this list, and Norfolk owns 1, 2. Well, I won't say that.
I guess I was just thinking more from the perspective. Yeah, I mean, definitely we should check and see,
Yeah.
without a
If we
doubt.
can do something that we can include, well, as a side deal with the private owners.
Yeah,
But at least what this will do is have the money there to treat all ponds and lakes. And yes, some of them are already financed, but then this would just continue it on. So it's a multi-year program, like the other ones were set up. And we'll have to go out to bid for it.
okay.
I think that where we may run into some challenges is what was voiced, and I can't remember who, I want to say maybe it was even a town meeting, that the funds from the Community Preservation Committee for, what was the name of the lake that's up there off of Shear Street?
Really?
Mirror Lake,
Mirror. So we had that, but the objection to it was, well, this benefits private homeowners really, who abut the lake. I can't go out there except for the fact that they've got a public beach.
Right,
So these other places that maybe have no real public access, even if they're owned by the town of Norfolk, I'm just saying we may run into some problems there.
well, and from the privately owned perspective, and the only one that really comes to my mind is Callahan's. It's the same thing. There is no, I do not believe there was any sanctioned public access.
And this other one would be like Rabbit Hill Pond, which is a sportsman's club. Well, that's wrong. It's Rentham Sportsman Club. So that's
yeah,
not
the other
correct.
one's Man Pond.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Peter, you say that Man Pond is privately owned?
It's
That's your knowledge.
privately owned.
all right, well, that bears some looking into for sure.
yeah. The premise of it is that, and you have to basically treat, everything's got to get treated because birds go from one water body to another. And if they're not all treated, you get the invasive plants. So, yeah, we'll have to fine tune the warrant article and list the ponds that the town owns. And then with the right pricing in there.
And David, to that end, on your comment, and back to Bob's comment, at town meeting, we could argue that treating all ponds helps the ones that we treated.
Yeah, I
already.
can put a little presentation together. Hopefully it's inside this year. And explain, what's going on and how the invasive plants get where they get.
Yeah, I mean, it's spread by birds, et cetera, et cetera. But, with having, I'm just thinking aloud here, even if you had that ability for private pond owners to pitch in, if it was presented that we would do them all, there was no incentive for them to pitch in.
Right, and so we would leave that as a separate thing. The money we asked for would be to treat all town-owned properties. And then have it for the other ones, and it'd have to be a selling job to them, but they all know their ponds are decreasing in size because of it. And you can't go in and take that out because it's wetlands now, like City Mills Pond, that whole back area, we can't touch. We'd love to go and dredge it, but you can't.
It's that fancy word called eutrophication.
Yeah.
All right, I'd like to, if folks are in favor in general of supporting treatment for water bodies that aren't already under contract, or all town-owned water bodies, I'd like to, then I think that we should put it in as a draft. I know I asked last year, and the board, the select board at that time was amenable to placeholders. This would definitely be a placeholder because there's no dollar amount attached, and there's no real definition of,
Yeah,
what we're gonna be treating, but
yeah, and that's it. Well, I mean, the final one would have the list of all the waterways, so it's clear what's getting treated. And we can defend that.
yeah,
Question.
yeah.
So I'm not quite clear, I guess, on what this article is. The article is trying to achieve to be able to put in front of the next town meeting a warrant article that says Community Preservation Committee funds would be spent to rehabilitate, or what do you call it, restore these
Restore.
ponds. And if I understood correctly, we've got to have this in 9 days.
Yes, but like I said, I think it was last year, I asked about sorry, something just flying in front of me. Placeholders, in that we can put in something that says we're gonna do this, and we'll flush it out, prior to town meeting. And at that point, I was told that the current select board was okay with that.
All right. And if we didn't flesh it out between now and whatever date it had to be solidified, in other words,
We take it out, we move
okay,
it.
that's all I wanted to find out is, can we pull back on this if necessary? I'm not,
Oh,
if
absolutely.
there's a placeholder, you just say, hey, we want a placeholder here. Forget about the wording of it. Just say, we need a placeholder for the time being.
Yeah, I
It sort of
just
defeats the
say,
purpose
this-
of a deadline in the first place, but hey,
Yeah.
okay, that's all right. Okay,
we're looking at a warrant article to fund the weed treatment of these ponds, but we're awaiting all the final details, and
all right.
then it would be up to the board the committee to yay or nay it when all the final details come in.
Right.
So yes, we could either withdraw it if we're in time to withdraw it, or we IP it if that's the appropriate way to do it on town meeting floor. But I'm assuming that all the information would come in prior to our next meeting, and would be able to vote next meeting to say, yeah, let's do this. No, let's not do this,
Yeah,
Do we need a motion on this?
Mhm. Do you want me to read my very vague, I'll read my very vague
Yes,
draft
please.
here. To see if the town will vote to allocate from the Community Preservation Fund X amount of money, with X amount of money coming from the Open Space and Recreation Reserve, and X amount of money from the undesignated fund, And I put for a 3 to 5 year weed control program, and we could just amend it to say a 5-year to, and then I had in question marks, assess, because some manner of assessment for treatment would be needed. So to assess and restore town-owned lakes and ponds, I'll put it that way for now. You know, Norfolk-owned lakes and ponds. And I'll just, let me diverge for a moment, just FYI, since I did send this to everybody. So our open space fund has $66,000 in it right now, and our undesignated has 2.8 million. So that's why I did break it up, not knowing the extent of, you know, how large this treatment program might be. So that's my vague warrant article.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I think it's messy.
Well, of course it's messy because I don't have any information.
She did her best, Paul.
Well, I mean, we're dealing with a lot of abstracts. Dave, I don't want to, you know, sound sour on the idea. I think it's a solid idea. I just think we need to pull it more together. And I mean,
Well, we do,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, I don't have the pricing, and that really puts it all in a circle and closes it up.
but I mean, I mean, so what's the rush? I mean, why wouldn't we?
Because you have to start in this, well, you're supposed to start in April.
Because
Okay, but why wouldn't we pull our resources together, Dave, through the upcoming warmer month and research the water properties and present it at fall town meeting and just start the program next year? You know,
Now we could do it that way, because we can finance this year.
Well, unless a huge tract of property becomes available and the town says, we want to spend all the CPC money. I don't see that money going away anytime soon. But I think it's just too abstract, and I think it's undefined. I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm for it in a lot of respects, but I think you're gonna find there's just a rat's nest of issues that'll pop up that, you're gonna get mired down in it,
I'm not too sure of that point, but I respect your opinion. I mean, we need to look at it the best way to get it passed.
yeah, to Paul's, or kind of tangent to his point, it's not a right word.
Tangent, whoa.
Yeah, I don't think that's a word.
Hold on, I gotta look up that word. Hold on.
I don't think that's a word.
No, it's okay.
Well, what I was thinking was, timing wise for pond treatments, generally they start in the fall or in the low months. So they start in the spring, right?
Yeah,
Early spring in the lowest water. So theoretically, assuming there's a November town meeting, which of course we never really know for sure. If the warrant article went in November, do you think that would be sufficient time for well, you'd have to go out to bid, you think?
yeah.
Because I was just gonna say, would that be sufficient time for a vendor to get up and going and be able to treat in, whatever, March, April?
Oh, yeah. And see, like, what they do is in the company that I'm using as the base to get the first quote amount, they measure the lakes from the maps and all like that, and they know the volumes. So then they can quote, how much chemicals need to go in. And then that gives us our pricing. So, yeah, if we pass it in November and it's for starting, let's say, January 1st of next year, the money will be there for the April treatment, which is the first treatment.
Gary.
Yeah, it sounds like during our few meetings when other people, let's say I lost count, we're treating 3 bodies of water right now, and there's a lot more. But people came to our meeting and said, hey, what about Bush Pond? I can practically walk across it. You said, all right, we'll start working on that next year. Now it sounds like everything got cloudy because we say we want to be all encompassing. Is there a midpoint where there are things we know we need to add to the list of what's being treated, but it might not be everything? And can we do those, can we get those others on a warrant quickly and expand it again in November?
I think we have a list of the bodies. I need to double check it because my admin person did it. And she's got some Plainville Lake ponds in there. But we're going to be able to have a finalized list very shortly. So we'll know exactly what bodies of water. I mean, right now it's this can't be. Yeah, I'm not even gonna. Yeah.
It sounds like it's a little bit premature, but one of the questions I had, if we're putting together a warrant article, let's pretend for a second we had all our ducks in a row, we would know exactly what we were going to go to town meeting with in terms of dollars, and let's say a list of ponds,
Yes,
or maybe keep it something as generic as ponds owned by the,
but we could,
Town of Norfolk.
we should have them listed so that we know, but also the towns people who know, the
Yeah.
residents know.
but I guess my point is this, is it sounds like if you had to get an estimate of what it would cost to give to CPC to say, we want $50,000, $100,000, doesn't matter. You would have to have, one, a list of ponds. We don't have that at this meeting. And
Right.
2, you have to have this out. Would you have to have it out for bid then?
You
N-
couldn't put it out to bid till the money was approved.
Yeah,
All right. So
But
then
you-
the money
you-
that we
can
put
get
in the
bids up
warrant
front,
article
though,
is our
Cindy.
rough estimate.
well,
You can estimate it.
Well,
Yeah, well, my
I mean, you can
plan
get
was-
estimates.
Okay.
my plan was is using this one vendor, get his pricing, and I told him it's going to be budgetary, a WAG, but, and then I'm going to increase it by 20%.
I
So it
understand.
covers it, and then when we go out to bid, we should have sufficient funds to fund it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of similar to the Metacomic Greenway, he got the feasibility study, he got estimates from a couple people. And then, they had to go out to bid because of municipal law purposes.
Right. Got
So
it.
it's kind of a similar process.
Mhm.
Cindy, do you recall the placeholder we did in the past? I can't think of the placeholder we did prior.
I don't think we've done one. I don't remember which one it was. My last few years of my mind is kind of mush. I don't remember. I just remember asking about it and being told that it was okay now, because under previous administrations, it was not okay. I'll
So,
just kind of leave it at that.
David, if we did a placeholder, would you have information for us?
Oh,
definitive
yeah.
Information for the March meeting?
Yes,
Well, that was kind of my initial thought, was if I just, I can finesse this a little bit, so it's not quite so vague. But yeah, and then if we don't have it at the March meeting, then we just pull it.
yeah,
I'm in support of the placeholder. I see Paul's point, and I say if we did the placeholder and David couldn't bring us information by the March meeting, I say we would pull it.
yeah.
That's just my opinion before we make a motion here.
Okay.
And if it's a placeholder, I don't know to what extent it even has to be defined to the level of detail that you've already got it defined, Cindy. Maybe you're just able to say, hey, look, we want to put a placeholder in here. We're considering this. We'll provide you with wording in mid-March or early to mid-March.
I mean, generally, they've liked at least
Okay.
some indication of what it is for.
All right.
That's all.
Yeah, you can tell them for treatment of waterways within Norfolk owned.
Yeah. And and I think it's a little different than, because it's pulling out of our CPA funds, it's not pulling out of the budget, so I think we have a little bit more flexibility maybe than some folks.
That people would vote for it.
No, just that, we can buy a little time because we're not impacting the town budget.
Budget, oh, yeah.
And Will, you haven't weighed in at all? You have an opinion?
Yeah, I'm in favor of moving forward with the placeholder. I don't see a particular downside to moving forward with it. Obviously, I think we're all in agreement that it's a good cause, it's a good program, good idea. So I don't necessarily think our reputation as a board is going to hinge on maybe a vaguely worded placeholder. I mean, I understand the point, but it seems like if we can get going on it sooner, why wouldn't we?
Okay. All right, so I'll tweak it a little bit. I'm gonna leave the X amounts of money from open space and rec and X amounts from undesignated, because I suspect that's how it's gonna go. Or I can just leave it, vote to allocate from the community preservation fund X amount, excuse me, for a 5-year weed control program to restore lakes and ponds in the town of Norfolk.
So moved.
Okay, I guess I
So
just made
this
a
is-
motion.
This is not a placeholder. This is a proposal that we're voting on now.
It is a proposed warrant article, but we can pull it.
I'm in favor of a placeholder. I'm in favor of wording that it be a placeholder, not in favor of a proposal.
I'm not sure that we can make a motion that it is a placeholder. I think when it goes in and it's vague, it becomes a placeholder.
All right, then I
And if
vote.
there's an agreement between us girls,
Pardon
I
me?
vote. I
if there's
vote
an
no.
agreement between us girls of what our intent is for the placeholder and then the final warrant article,
Right, it becomes a placeholder because it doesn't have definitive,
the detail.
it doesn't have the details. So it becomes a placeholder by default. That's my understanding of how this works.
We lost our agent, so that's why the getting some of the information was a little bit harder and took a little bit longer to piece together. Because our admin person is relatively new too and needs a lot of guidance.
Yep. All right, so I'm gonna just change it to allocate from community preservation fund X amount of dollars for a 5-year weed control program to restore lakes and ponds in the town of Norfolk. And I'll just leave
That
it at
sounds
that,
good.
and we'll fix up the wording once we have details, or if the board so votes, then we just pull it, say, take it away. All right, somebody made a motion, right?
I did.
Peter, is there a second?
Second,
Second
And
from
may I
Bob.
suggest before we do a roll call that maybe Michelle calls out our names and it'll be a little more organized?
Okay. That's good
But
for
that's how they
me.
do it on some of the other boards, so I'm just.
All right, thanks. But I will ask if there is any other motions been made and seconded, and is there any other discussion from the board? Is there any questions or discussion from our guests? Okay, hearing none. Michelle, you get the job of doing the roll call vote?
The roll call. So I don't have to do it in any order, right?
Nope.
All right, so Dave Turry,
Yes,
Cindy Andrade,
Yes.
Gary Surley,
Yes.
Will Rigdon,
Yes.
Bob Peschke,
yes,
Peter Diamond,
Aye.
Paul Terrio.
No,
Okay. Thank you, Peter, for that suggestion. That did make it a heck of a lot easier
Organized.
to
Professional.
follow. All righty. Item number 1 is done. Annual report. This
Thank
is
you,
also
Michelle.
due shortly.
You're welcome.
I think it's due the 8th or something like that. So, Gary, I have a special thing to tell you.
Okay.
Did you get a chance to read it?
I read through it quickly just before the meeting,
Okay,
but I didn't. Go ahead.
so in the past, you had asked if there was a way to say, up in the front paragraph, 2014, the CPA surcharge was reduced, and so now our match has only been 23% since it was reduced.
Mhm.
And you'd always ask, is there a way to say how much we would have gotten if it wasn't reduced? And I was like, oh my God, that would just be a huge headache. But today I was thinking about it. So I added, and see if y'all think that this makes sense to put this in. Right at the very last sentence in that first paragraph, what I did was I calculated the match prior to the reduction. So from 2002 to 2013, the state match was 83% of local receipts. So that is a truism, but that doesn't necessarily reflect what it would have been through the whole period. Because in the very early years, like the first 5 years or so, there were so few communities that the match was 100%.
Yeah.
So if people think that that makes sense to put that in, we will. And if people think it does not make sense, then I'll take it out.
I asked that originally because I recall a story around when it all got voted away and some influences that existed at the time. The town voted, let's do away with this tax on selling real estate. And I thought it was very foolish at the time when it happened. And I think every year that it's foolish. And I think most people might do the same thing if they realize that there were matching funds and that here's all these good things that the investment goes to, and it doesn't really harm anyone to any great degree. I thought I just don't know that the one statement that you have is obvious enough that we could turn this around and vote for it again in a future year. But here's the money we lost because we voted this down one time. I think most people on this committee think it's never going to go back in the other direction.
Well, you could make a proposal to increase it again up to 3%. Right, Cindy? I mean,
Yeah, I think Peter suggested that
Yes.
in the past.
When it went down to 1%, we were in the middle, or we were in the Great Recession. I think it was back in 2010.
Oh, wow.
It was,
Yeah, it actually reduced in 14, but it was
Was
like
it?
a year and a half prior to that when the vote was taken.
yeah, there was
There
a
was like a
lag.
lag.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was strongly championed by the real estate community,
Yeah,
the selling community.
To what? Reduce it?
so
Yeah.
reduce it from 3 to 1,
it was the
3% to
the
1%.
realtor community was behind it. Behind that proposal to reduce it. Because their argument was that our tax rate was higher than other towns and it drove people to neighboring towns to buy homes as opposed to Norfolk. That was the argument at the time. So anyway, so I would like any input on this, changes, suggestions, leave the
I mean,
sentence in.
what's the purpose of us I mean, I understand that we want to say, haha, look at what we missed out on, right? I think the time for that would be as if we want to propose, an increase back to 3%. That's, I mean, that would be, what's behind us is behind us, And then when you
Yeah.
want to, well, why would you want to increase it again? Well, here, quite frankly, here's the reasons why, we lost out on XYZ amount of money,
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's just my input, so.
Okay.
Is it, are you putting it there because it's easier to track it in the future and say, here's an annual amount that we could have had with 3%?
No, I can't go back, and I'd have to go back and find all the 3%
Yeah.
and do all the math, and
Yeah,
it was just one of those things that occurred to me today, but I'll just take it out. Because like I said, it's not really relevant to what we would have, it isn't really relevant to what we would have. What the match would have been had it been 3% going forward. It was just a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
To the past. Okay, well, let's take it out. All right. Did
Thanks for
any?
your efforts on doing that. Thank you for your effort.
That's okay.
No, really.
Play with my calculator. All right. Did anyone have any suggestions on the bullet points? Changes, additions, subtractions? And especially the rail trail stuff, because I kind of struggled with that bullet point quite a bit. Which is the third one.
I read it. It all seems fine to me. I think it's great, Cindy.
Okay.
You know, I don't think I could add anything.
So I will, in the late, especially like I said, because I struggled with the rail trail thing. I asked Rich McCarthy for time diverging just a little bit, but it's relative to the conversation. He said, excuse me, that they, I don't know who exactly, but they have had positive conversations with the property owners who own the right of way. So the people who bought Hill Street, but I don't think that that's something we can reference in here.
You could say abutting property, there's continuing conversation. with
Conversation.
abutting- Yeah, conversation with the abutting property owners, you know, I mean.
All right.
But, you know.
Okay, also continue to pursue the acquisition of a privately owned parcel if the abandoned and central transportation rail bed. Period. It was ultimately sold. Or it was sold. But conversations are continuing with the property owner? Or conversations continue?
It's not just with the hospital though. So it should be just plural.
Yeah,
We're not involved in those conversations. The CPC's responsibility is the feasibility study at this point in time.
yeah, so yeah, but yeah, you're right. CPC isn't having any conversations.
Yeah, so I don't think it's necessary.
Okay,
What you've got in there already with respect to saying that CPC continues to investigate, it should be continues versus, well, I guess past tense, you're right in that, but continues to investigate the acquisition of privately owned parcel is fine. Part of that is that we're working through Rich and discussions with abutters. I don't think.
what if
we
I
need to
change
state it.
this? So if you saw my my redone thing, it said CPC also continue to pursue the acquisition of the privately owned parcel, because that was Hill Street. But I could kind of change it to say CPC continues, or CPC in the town continue to pursue access. Because I'm sure we'll be involved with it at some point. To pursue access of privately owned parcels.
You can say CPC continues to investigate the acquisition of or access to
Access to, yeah.
privately owned parcels in the
Yep.
Pondville section, that's
Yep.
it.
Okay, I'll change it to that. I think that's better. Thanks. Okay, I'll change that. Anyone have anything else? So I'll strike that last sentence in the first paragraph. Otherwise, it's pretty standard stuff. So if someone, any other comments or questions on this? Okay, someone want to make a motion to accept the annual report as written, or as amended, I'm sorry.
So moved.
That was Will.
I second the
Second.
motion.
Okay, Dave. Michelle, you're on for any further
Roll call.
discussion? Okay, Michelle, you're on for the roll call vote.
Dave Turry,
Yes.
Cindy Andrade,
Yes.
Gary Searly,
Yes.
Will Rigdon,
Yes.
Bob Peschke,
Aye.
Peter Diamond,
Aye.
Paul Terrio.
Paul.
Paul Terrio.
I said aye.
Oh.
Okay.
Aye, 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 aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
It was a quiet eye.
A very quiet eye. All right,
Silent aye.
silent eye. All right, yeah, moving on to project updates, Metacomic Greenway. So I think y'all got the public workshop to be held Thursday, February 17 at 7, because Rich sent it to everybody. Okay, and I know he also sent it to Recreation. And he had indicated to me he was gonna ask Betsy Fidgel for a planning board to push it out through Facebook, and I think he was going to ask Recreation to do the same. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But I know he did send it to,
I sent it to Ann. So if he did and I did.
yeah,
So-
he said he did, so. I won't be here. And if I can join in, I will, but hopefully there'll be, people here, so that people who attend it. So for the record, since we're being recorded, the Town of Norfolk Land Use Department is having a public workshop on the Metacomic Greenway feasibility study, which was funded by CPA funds, Thursday, February 17 at 7 o'clock. And the purpose is to provide the town with the opportunity to introduce the public to the Metacomic Greenway feasibility study, which is currently in progress. They'll be looking for public input on the proposed shared use path that will be the subject of the feasibility study. And for the record, the Greenway, Metacomic Greenway, we call it the rail trail, is planned to go from Walpole to the Rhode Island border, and Winter Street and Walpole to the Pawtucket Cumberland town line in Rhode Island. So the Norfolk section is 1.5 miles, but the whole thing is 17 miles. So for anyone who happens to see this after our meeting, please, and before the February 17 workshop, please join it. And the other update that town planner Rich McCarthy gave me was one about the workshop And 2, they've had preliminary conversations with property owners who own the right of way, who've been positive in working with the town. So I don't know exactly which property owners those are. The main ones are Southwood Hospital and the parcels on Hill Street. He also wrote, he said the consultants walked the trail, identified opportunities and challenges, and are investigating permitting issues. He said good coordination is happening with Walpole, Rentham, and others. And they're trying to get Walpole to also fund a feasibility study to explore connection options from their recreation complex. So that is the update on the rail trail, Metacomic Greenway.
And every other town that's involved in it is doing the same thing, but we're farther advanced than they are. Because we've hired somebody already.
Yeah, well, Rentham had hired somebody already too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really North Attleboro and Plainville. But they've got National Grid ways, right of ways that they're trying to go after. And there's hundreds and thousands of miles of National Grid land for trails, and they've given them up. And like in New York, I guess, in the Allegheny Mountains, a lot of land is from National Grid, so they're very cooperative.
Well, that's good. So hopefully things will move forward a little bit. Any other discussion, comments, questions from the board or from our guests? Okay, hearing none. Next, project update is the housing production plan. So I have to find that piece of paper. Yeah, so I reached out to Susan Jacobson. Although also I had heard from her, there's going to be a focus group for that as well, but it's not a public input per se. So she said, we are well underway with the housing production plan. We have met with the consultant and the team several times. We have set up a timeline for focus groups, community workshop dates, which I presume will be broader, and scheduled dates to present the plan to both the planning board and the select board. We anticipate sending the housing production plan update to the Department of Housing and Community Development for approval at the end of June. So, Paul got an invite to this focus group. So they're having a focus group, or the Norfolk Municipal Affording Housing Trust is having a focus group that's 3 different times. And they're for 7 people a piece, and they seem, from what I could see from who was invited, it seems to be all town board related people, or town related people. And the focus groups are 75 minutes each. You only go to one. So I cannot go. I'm also away for this, both of them. But if anyone else on the board is interested in going, Sue Jacobson said, by all means, invite someone. They're just limiting it to 7 people per group. So I didn't forward the information, but if anyone would like me to forward it, if they're interested.
What date is it?
The 10th and the 16th of February. I think there were 3 times total between those 2 days.
Okay.
So anyway, so they're well underway, so that's great. Does anyone want me to send them the sign up information? Peter? I'll
Yes,
forward it to you.
please send it to me. I'll review it and see if I
Okay.
can attend.
All right. I'll send that tonight. Senior Center Shade Pavilion. Sherry Norman, the director of the Council on Aging. So this is pretty typical, I think. Her response was, unfortunately, the project has taken longer than I had originally hoped. That is always the case, isn't it? Good news is that we received a state earmark for the parking lot design, but that necessitated the engineer developing 2 scopes of work to keep the money separate. I'm not quite sure what that means, but okay. We experienced a further delay because the town changed their contract, which required the engineer to purchase additional insurance. I'm guessing that's also something with insurance contract. As of today, we are greenlit and the engineer anticipates being able to put a plan together for her to review later this month. So everybody was wondering if that was progressing. So it does sound like it is at this point, you know, but like I said, it's all projects have delays, it seems.
So it
that's
sounds
it.
like she's doing engineering on a parking lot and engineering for the tent structure. And we didn't fund any funds for anything other than the tent structure. So I think that may be why she mentioned the separation for the engineering fees.
Right.
Just guessing, it sounds like that they probably got money out of the state budget, so they probably can only use state budget for that scope, and then what we gave them for that scope. So they probably had to do 2 separate projects completely in order to get the funds to go where they needed. That's what it sounds like to me, but
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, because we only funded the pavilion. We didn't fund anything with regard to the parking lot. And I think if I remember, the siting was a little uncertain back originally. So that must have been what they've been working on, is the siting, and then whatever they have to do with regard to redesigning the parking lot as well. So
Okay.
anything else on that one? Okay, pond treatments is next. So these are the existing ones. And yeah, so Dave and I have talked about this. He proposed, or conservation has proposed, taking over the supervision of the 2, or the City Mills and Highland Lake pond treatment. I mean, as people know, it was originally proposed by the Historic Commission via Barbara Bartholomew. And, you know, she's not been, she's been active, but, you know, she's in a medical facility. So, you know, she's not hands-on, so to speak. And so over the past year or so, it kind of all transitioned, and I said I'd, you know, take care of signing the vouchers and handling the vouchers, and it should go to me rather than going to her, because things were getting lost. And so everything is now progressing and has been progressing. The Highland Lake was treated last year. I just received, and Dave got it as well, the proposal for this year's treatment of Highland Lake. And they sent a contract to me, so either Dave or I will be, I'm assuming we'll be signing it. And then also on City Mills, they just went through the notice of intent process with conservation, and they got their order of conditions. Yeah. So that is scheduled to start this spring. So yeah, so that's going. And Dave and I had spoken, I guess, at the conservation meeting in January, December.
Yeah.
About conservation taking control and supervising it as opposed to the Historic Commission. So I did check with the Community Preservation Coalition to make sure that that was okay. You know, that whoever was sponsoring it and supervising it, could it switch to a different board? And they said, absolutely, there's no issue with that. So I don't know, Dave, did you talk to anyone in historic to? Yeah.
Not yet.
Okay.
Oh, I forgot about that part. I will make a call tomorrow.
Yeah, just so that there's no confusion
Yeah.
over,
Yeah. My fault.
yeah, no, that's fine. So who's gonna be supervising it? So I think it's gonna transition over to conservation.
Yeah.
And they'll be signing all the contracts and going out there and looking at stuff that's been done and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to me.
That's what the agent's for.
That's what the agent's for, yeah, exactly.
They don't, the one to be hired.
So Dave, and excuse me for the rest of the group here, but do you want me just to sign the current Highland one?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll take care of the current ones and then sign off to you going forward.
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Hey, Donna Jones has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for noticing that. Go ahead, Donna.
Hi, Donna. Hello, this is Donna, an associate member of the Historical Commission. I see this as Barbara realized, like Highland Lake, we admitted ownership of it as a historic site. And the residents said, we've done our part to try to clean this up. Town, can you help us? I don't remember a vote by the Historical Commission to promote this. Barbara said, I'm thinking of doing this. The committee said, sure, go ahead. So me personally, I would love to have conservation take this over. And I do appreciate the thought of looking at other places that the public has access to. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Donna. But yes, it was actually a formal proposal from Barbara on behalf of the Historic Commission, and that's how it went to a warrant article. Back 1918, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was a vote at some point by the Historic Commission to go forward and, you know, ask for CPA funding for it. But, you know, I think we all realize that it's a little bit of a challenge for her to be managing it at this point.
Yes.
And she was filling a void because
Yeah.
nobody in town, any committee or department was looking out for that. And I mean, kudos to her for identifying that there is a problem and we need to act on it.
Yes,
So the conservation is very grateful to all the efforts she's put in. But yeah, now that we're getting there and trying to do formal planning, yeah, let us take it over and she doesn't have to be worried about it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, kudos to her. Absolutely. Give her credit for that, for sure. All right, any other discussion on the ongoing City Mills and Highland Lake treatment programs? Alrighty. Any other project updates anyone wants to bring up? Okay. CPA match. Everyone should have gotten the lovely letter from Stuart Saganor at the Community Preservation Coalition that, so this was dated January 20. And there was a extra distribution of 10 million in state budget surplus funds for the CPA trust fund. So all communities got a 43.8% match, which I think is one of the highest in a number of years. And for us, I clicked on the spreadsheet, and for the town of Norfolk, that's going to be approximately $122,466. So that's just a point of information. And yeah, I don't think it's been up around 43% in a long time. Seems to me it's been more in the 20s. So everyone did get the email, right? Everyone's on their list. I hope.
Yes.
Okay. Moving forward, last big thing is minutes for December, which Michelle resent today. I was not there, but I do have a couple of edits. Of course I do. So when the meeting was called to order, I changed it to member Paul Terrio to vice chair Paul Terrio. Gave him his appropriate title. And then just 2 points on August 16 and August 4 minutes. The votes were not unanimous, so it actually should be spelled out that the vote was 4 in favor and 1 abstain. And then the only other thing was under accounts to close. It's not the Trump House restoration, it's the Tramp House. Which I laughed like heck when I saw.
Campaign headquarters.
Better than the Four Seasons.
So that was it from me. So did anybody else have anything that they wanted to make a note of? And I can't vote on this, so.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Michelle, you're on for the vote.
So Dave Terrio,
Dave
Dave
Terrio.
Not a chance.
Try again, Michelle.
did he not? Dave Terrio.
No,
No.
Dave Turry.
I mean, Dave, oh my God, Dave Terry, sorry. I'm like.
I'm
so
not a
tired.
Terrio. God forbid.
Cindy Andrade,
Aye.
Cindy abstains.
Gary Searley,
I think I need to abstain as well. I wasn't at the meeting.
You weren't there either, yeah.
Will Rigdon,
Yes, aye.
Bob Peschke,
Aye.
Peter Diamond,
Aye.
Paul Terrio.
Aye.
All right. So Michelle, when you finalize them, will you send them to Bob so that he can sign them and get them over to the town clerk?
Yes.
Okay. So I have one item under unanticipated business. While I was poking around on the town website, stealing wording and things, I was on the town clerk's page. And I guess I knew this, but it didn't sink in that Norfolk is going back to 4 precincts.
Oh,
So we're 3 now, or we have been 3 for a while. And so this is just something that's probably going to have to be addressed. I don't know when, probably before next town meeting. Our current bylaw states that our members, besides board representatives, our members are 1 from each of 3 precincts and an at-large. Prior to that, when the CPC first came into existence here, there were 4 precincts in town then. And at that time, when it was all set up, this was before my time, but it was set up to be members from each of the 4 precincts and then the board representatives, which gave us 9 members. So when we went to 3 precincts, the bylaw was changed to be the 3 precincts plus an at-large to keep us at an odd number of members. So I'm guessing that there's kind of probably be another change afoot at some point to somehow reflect the fact that we're going back to 4 precincts. I don't know how that will play out. Maybe it won't, but it's just something that I became aware of. And I honestly don't know what that means at this point. So
Sounds like it means I might lose my job.
Why?
So
I'm at large.
you're at large. Yeah, so
Cindy, didn't we create the at-large when we went from 4 to 3?
we did. So I don't know if we're gonna have to go back to the 4 or if we can stay at 3 and at large.
Why does anything need to change? I never understood the reason you changed the first time. Is it a state mandate that all precincts are represented?
No, not at all. It was the way the town wrote the bylaw to begin with. And when it came to the fact that it was somebody chosen from 4 precincts, we no longer had 4 precincts,
Okay,
but we wanted to keep an odd number of members for voting.
sure.
So we did the 3 precincts and an at large. So maybe it won't have to change.
So we don't have the precinct breakouts yet, right?
No,
When is that happening?
I guess it's already been approved because what was on the town clerk's website had to do with the fact that the census was delayed because they were still finalizing where the precinct lines were, or they knew the precinct lines, but they had to finalize, like, you know, is house 2 in 2X road in this precinct, and but number 4 is in that precinct, you know, I mean, that fine tuning of stuff. So it's gonna be, I think.
So could you bring the bylaw language to the next meeting? We'll just take a look at it possibly.
Yeah,
And,
I suspect we probably will have to talk to town council, but I mean, I was thinking about it today while I was making dinner, and I thought, you know, I understand, I think, you know, why it made sense in the very, very beginning when CPC was created. It made logical sense to have one person from each of 4 precincts and then the board representatives. But maybe it just makes sense to just have 4 people from the town and not specify where they come from. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think,
That could work too.
yeah, I'm guessing this is just conjecture on my part. I don't know. Paul, you were there in the very beginning, right?
Not at the very beginning, but shortly thereafter.
Shortly thereafter.
Yeah, shortly thereafter. I think you'd get some blowback about for at large because, you know, say for instance, that would allow a neighborhood to theoretically petition, you know, 4 different members and influence things in their direction, you know, as opposed, you know, district-wide or precinct-wide, you know, we're split up.
But
I don't
Paul,
know.
isn't it the Board of Selectmen that has to approve members so they could
Yeah.
theoretically, at least
yes, they do appoint them. That is true. Yeah.
so theoretically they could, you know, see
Yeah,
that, hey,
there's-
we've
yeah, there's-
got all
There's
these
no
kids.
given other than the fact that, you know, getting volunteers is a difficult process anyway.
Right. And I'm guessing, like you said, my conjecture would be that it made sense to have a geographically diverse group within the town.
Mhm.
You know, when they said one from each of 4 precincts.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's the only thing that pops into my mind, but.
Yeah. So I don't know what that will mean. I don't know if it is gonna have to change. It's just something that I became aware of. So I just figured
Aren't precincts just a policing thing or a voting?
it's a voting
issue?
thing.
Yeah, I don't even understand the influence that it would have. Why do we
Well,
need
there-
representation?
So Gary, theoretically, we were responsible for, you know, echoing the sentiments on proposals from our precinct, right? I mean, you know, we're supposed to be
Really?
theoretically polling our precinct or somehow, you know, be in touch with it. You know, but
Oh, I get it. All right.
yeah, I
You
mean,
mean you haven't done that, Gary?
yeah, I was trying. Go knock on all your neighbors' doors.
There's one day every other year that I know what precinct I'm in, or when they
Right,
tell me, go to that booth over there, I actually
right,
don't know.
exactly. Yeah,
So, and Peter, it doesn't mean you lose your job. You just might have to move, in town somewhere else.
yeah.
You might move, Bob.
Yeah, I'm
That's right.
guessing you guys are the closest geographically. I'm guessing you probably might be in
Same
the same
precinct.
precinct. So yeah, Bob can move. I mean, he can, and Peter can be the whatever precinct you are, and Bob can go move to the new precinct. Who knows? Like I said, I don't know. It's just something that I became aware of, and I suspect it's gonna come up in some shape or form. That's all.
Yeah, according to the town clerk, yeah, it's supposed to happen they hope in the next few weeks, Boston needs to do their thing with the census.
Yeah. So, and like I said, hopefully we can just stay status quo and not worry about it, but I just don't know. So anyway, anybody else, any other new old business, Peter?
Sure, we've closed accounts.
Yep.
And we discussed a couple that we didn't really take a look at, and they were Gump's Farm Wall and Gump's Farm Kids Place. So Gump's Farm Kids Place has $88,518.06. Gump's Farm Wall has $7,825. And I think in review of accounts, we never really discussed those. So I just wanted to bring that to the floor.
Yeah, I don't know why that's called wall, honestly.
All right, I'm just reading from the.
Yeah, no, I see it. I'd have to
circular.
look back and see what that exactly referred to. I know there's a couple of things outstanding. We never put a trail in, so that's why I always left it open, was to put a trail in over by the vernal pool and out somewhere that way. And
It never got, flushed out.
that never got fleshed out, but that, I mean, it would still be a good thing to put in, and that was one of the reasons I left it open. I'd have to check exactly what the wall thing referred to. I mean, if it's something that's all said and done, then
It was the petition for my backyard into that property.
I was put a 10-foot wall, cement blocks,
You serious?
razor wire on top.
Gun turret.
yeah, I don't know. I'll have to.
Yeah,
I'll
you
have
don't
to-
want those Baptists coming on your land.
So we have $88,000 for a future trail?
Yeah, well, there's trails. There was actually originally proposed, there were like 3 sets of trails. Some of them just got down by conservation back in the day. But I think that one is still feasible. And then Recreation has asked about not redoing, but rehabilitating, shall we say, Will?
Yeah,
Refurbish.
The
restoring, redoing, refreshing, I guess, I don't know.
yeah, some of the open area there with the hills. So I mean, it's this,
Kids run up and down them.
yeah, and they get worn out. I guess there was a proposal to do not grass.
How about money to eradicate the groundhogs that go after the community garden?
Yeah, I'm not sure that would fly. But there are definitely still some things that could be done and probably could be used for. The other thing, yeah, there was something else that is still kind of like hanging that we could do out there.
There's no time limit on these counts. They stay open until someone feels there's just,
Yeah,
we're done. We're not done there is what we're saying.
yeah, there's still things that could be done. Absolutely.
Okay.
And that, yeah, it would be good to get that trail in. I mean, we looked at a couple of alternatives over the years, and I know Donna pointed out to me at some point that we could get assistance from Audubon on planning a trail, had talked to Lions at some point about doing the trail. well, it was quite a number of years ago, and they chose some other project. I guess maybe that was when they put in the community garden, because we had talked to them about putting in the trail. And they opted for the garden.
Okay,
But that definitely something we could revisit again. So was there another account?
those were the only two on my question list.
Okay.
I had some. Joyce said that like apparently there's a lot of chatter on the community page regarding property behind the Catholic Church and the town pond area, that area is up for sale or something. Has it-
That's what I was gonna bring up.
It's been sold, I heard.
What?
I heard that property sold.
And Woods
Where-
property,
Yeah,
Uh,
Woods property, yeah,
Woods
Woods property.
Yeah.
but that's not town pond.
No.
It just connects to it.
It connects to it.
And
Donna, what were you gonna say?
So 27 Seekonk Street was owned by Kenneth and Shirley Wood. Kenneth died a while ago. He was on many town committees. And I found the 1965 town meeting report where the town voted to purchase the land for Town Pond and money to build the swimming pool, the swimming area.
Yep,
So he was definitely into conservation.
he was on
Um,
conservation.
Right, and,
Mhm.
and other things related to nature. In like 2019, I called Shirley and said, is it okay if I walk on your property that comes from Town Pond? Oh, yes, that's why it's there. And then Shirley died in 2020. And now they have three adult kids. Two of them are, one or two still live in Norfolk. And a Main Street resident brought it up. Do you know there's 9.9 acres for sale? And we should take it. Why doesn't it go before CPC? And that's the discussion that had like 100 people contribute to it, 100 responses contribute to it. So I was looking tonight to say, what's the process? Who approaches the family to possibly, look into acquiring some or all of the property for open space? It was a mention that, yes, we need more cemetery space. Could some of that property be used for cemetery?
Somebody said it's been sold already.
I thought I heard it sold, but maybe I'm wrong.
Just a couple of days ago, I looked and it said it had been on the market for like 26 days.
Yeah, I
Things
actually,
change.
And how much was it being sold for?
$7.99.
yeah, I was gonna say it was like 775, 800. Yeah.
And
I actually talked to Janet DeLongo when she was still here about it. And I think Dave too. But the house was there. There were outbuildings. But and just looking at the map, because I had looked at it, there was a big hunk in the back. If you view it as a long rectangular property going out to the Town Pond property, I can't imagine that, say if a developer, just for instance, if a developer bought it, I can't imagine they could go that far back with a cul-de-sac. And so I just kind of had suggested, I didn't know at that point Janet was leaving, that it be on their radar screen potentially to see if maybe part of the back of it could be attached to Town Pond. But it would be nice to have an access to Seekonk Street, but I don't really know if that's feasible.
I have a comment.
Yeah,
So there's just like a narrow path, well, say a 4-foot path that you come out of the woods and you think, oh, I'm in somebody's backyard, but that's what I believe Ken and definitely Shirley intended was that you can walk beside my house to get to Seekonk Street. Whether or not it's been sold, maybe we could approach the person to say, is it possible we still have access to this path? Are you interested in selling your back property? You know, people were saying, oh my gosh, 40B could go in there. And John Muddleton chimed in and said, oh, you could only get X number, I'll say 5 houses in there.
Yeah, I think it was too narrow to get a heck of a lot. The other thing, somewhat related, is the access to Town Pond now is through Old Town Hall up behind the back there. I don't know that there's any proposal again to sell that property, but should that property be sold? Hang on,
That's the
Judy, I
water
see you.
department's property.
It's water department?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
if the Old Town Hall is sold, we still gonna have access up in,
No, it's complicated. Alan Feeney was telling me about it. But that, yeah, the water department has ownership, a lot of ownership around the old town hall. We have conservation has a strip of land next to the town hall.
that the pond is on the, looking at Town Hall on the left side or the right side?
I'm not sure. I don't think it is. I don't think our property connects to the town pond property
Oh, all right,
section.
yeah. Hi, Judy, can you identify yourself, please?
You're on mute.
Yep, unmute yourself.
Are you talking to Judy?
Yeah, she's got a hand up. Okay, if you unmute yourself, chime in. Anyway,
I've walked that path many times from Town Pond all the way behind Town Pond, and it comes out on Seekonk Street,
mm,
right next to the Wood property.
Mhm.
It was almost like a fire trail wide enough for a truck to pass through there when I was younger.
yeah, I saw it in the pictures, it looked like there was a cart path.
Can Donna make a quick statement?
Sure.
The current Conservation Committee property list on the website calls it Kenneth Wood Conservation Land.
Yeah, I know,
Parentheses Town Pond.
yep,
And on Facebook, Judy is one of the people that was a contact person.
okay.
It-
I was actually on conservation when we had that dedication ceremony and called it, we're gonna call it the Kenwood Woods, but you know. Yes, Kenneth Wood Conservation Area. Because
Do you have the power to unmute Judy so she can?
I
talk?
did, I sent her an unmute request.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had an ask to unmute. Yeah, I did, but it's not, she's not.
So Judy, if you can hear us down in the left-hand corner of your Zoom platform there's a place to unmute yourself. No,
You're gone. Oh, no, there she is.
so if CPC were to move on this money, we need something from recreation or somebody saying there's an interest in the property, number one. And then number two, it would have to go through the appraisal process, and we couldn't pay any more for the property than it's appraised at.
Right. I mean, I think ideally
It's not a buildable lot, right?
it's buildable where the house is now. And I'm sure, I don't know what the topography is, because when I looked at it, I wasn't looking at a topo map, so. You know, I don't know if back where it abuts Town Pond, if it's wet, if it's dry. Like Peter said, there is a cart path that goes already back, all the way back there, but I know part of it is upland, because I definitely have walked it at some point as well, or at least part of it. You know,
And
ideally
eventually
would
it
be getting
crosses the
easement.
stream. The town pond, there's a stream that runs out of the other side of it, and that
Yeah.
cart path traverses the stream with some wooden planks.
I mean, you know, ideally to get just to get an easement access would be wonderful.
What's the address?
27, right?
27 Seekonk, I think was mentioned.
Yeah, 27.
27.
Oh, Peter, you must have known Ken, right?
I know the whole Wood family. The gentleman that lives on Main Street is the son, Stephen, and he was on the fire department for years. Retired from the fire department. And
Was it-
my mother was good friends with Shirley.
Okay. She was a piano teacher, right?
I'm not sure.
Somebody told me that. I was on conservation with him in my early days, and it was a lot of fun to go on walks with him because he was also a botanist, and so he like pull stuff out of the ground and say, "Here, eat this." It was a lot of fun.
So I
Alrighty.
guess Donna's original question, should one of us as a public member approach the family to say, or the realtor to say, would you consider this? Should a CPC member do that?
If the board has an interest, it should come from a board, not from a private resident.
If somebody wants to propose to purchase a property, they just bring it to the town and say, we'd like you to consider buying this property. You could do it, Donna, if you want, you know.
Mhm.
And then, you know, I mean, you'd have to have the backing of the property owner. And then it would go through the process like, you know, as described, it gets, you know, appraised on our end. We then have, it passes our internal appraisal, and then, you know, then we vote on, you know, a formal appraisal, and then it has to go through town meeting.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know if Judy's still there. Willing to work with her. I know how to contact Bill Crane.
Do
who would-
you think Judy, that's why Judy's on, just for that property?
I would think so. It started with, oops,
There's a note from her. She can't seem to unmute.
Okay.
Do we have a
Yeah,
chat
talk
box?
about purchasing it.
She can chat in the chat box.
Yeah, you
Judy.
can, Judy, if you can,
You just
start-
did.
oh,
Just
there we
did.
go. She's there. Okay.
So Judy, you can put your comment in the chat box and we can all see it.
Yep.
Type away.
You can't unmute her?
No, I can't seem to do it. I can only ask her to unmute. I can't seem to actually unmute her. And that may be me, you know. Because I clicked over here and start video, pin, make a host, make a co-host, rename, allow to multi-pin, put in waiting room, remove, report. All I can do is ask her to unmute. I don't seem to be able to actually unmute her to the best that I can see.
Well, she had a
Except to hit
message
the
to us. I
microphone.
haven't seen anything else.
Sorry, say again, Paul.
I said she got a message to us. I haven't seen anything else.
Yeah. Oh, there she goes. She hit her on mute, no luck. Yeah, we all have technological problems. I don't know, what would be the best way for
I guess for one of us to contact the realtor.
Yeah, I have. I have Donna's cell phone. I mean, for sure, we can call the Realtor and just see where things are at. That would be a good first step. Oh, Redfin is the Realtor, okay. Yeah, Judy, if you want, Donna, do you have Judy's contact information, or Judy, you can?
Yes.
All right, well, why don't you,
So the Facebook page says that call Judy at her telephone number or Bill Crane at another number.
Regarding this property,
Yes, I could read the couple of paragraphs they wrote. But the summary is they're really interested in keeping it.
all right, well, yeah, don't put any phone numbers here.
Right.
I'm not on the Norfolk Facebook page. Is anyone else on the board on the Norfolk Facebook page?
I am, but I haven't been to it in a long time.
Okay, all right, Donna, I'll get,
I copied and pasted from the Facebook page, so I have a Word document.
why don't you send that to me some shape or form?
Okay,
All righty, you can text it, or you've got my email too.
yeah, it's,
So Dawn, are you saying that the people are interested in the town going after the property?
do you know that they're, yes.
Well, we
Now-
need some input from the property owners on what they want to do.
Right,
If they're interested in the town. Trying to buy the property.
Yeah, because they would have to know it's, it's a long process. But potentially, I suppose, I don't know what kind of shape the house is in. I'm just saying, I saw the pictures. It's an older home.
The-
And,
I interpreted the listing as more towards develop your own thing here.
Knock
okay,
it down and rebuild.
yeah,
Yes, there's nice property and there's benches on the property and here's what it is. It is like new owner must do, buyer must do due diligence.
yeah.
Judy, who in the town was approached, Judy? Selectmen, conservation, recreation? Who in the town was approached? If you know.
Well, she wrote, town was already approached.
Yeah,
Yeah,
No,
but who?
Well,
It wasn't recreation, I can tell you that.
and was that recent?
I think it was a while ago.
Like, are you talking decades ago or what I understood from this Facebook thing, it was in the 60s when we chose to buy property from the woods for Town Pond. We had the option to get more, but the town chose not to at the time.
Judy says the town administrator was approached. And I can assume from the no comment that the town administrator said, no, the town wasn't interested in it. Is that what you're saying, Judy?
sounds that way.
That's the way I read it.
Okay,
So
all right, so maybe what we can do is approach the Realtor. Donna, send me all the contact stuff that you have, whatever the stuff is from Facebook. And
Yeah.
maybe we can approach the Realtor and just see if they would be open to even having a discussion. If they are open to even having a discussion, probably the very first step would be to ask them to let us do a walk around the property, and then for CPC to determine with other boards, because there could be alternate uses. There could be affordable housing, conservation, probably not historic, but there could be multiple uses on the property if we do a walk around and see if we're interested in if we are interested in pursuing it and if the family is even interested in entertaining it. That's kind of step number one. But we could certainly do that. And, you know, that would be number one. If I always, you know, I feel I need to let people know if they're selling. Yeah, the property might be in a historic district. That's possible. It's that corner there. We'd have to ask historic about that. Thank you for that. And, but you know, unfortunately, you know, selling to the town is not a speedy process. So, always try to let people know that. Just point of interest. All right, if Donna sends me everything, I'll make an initial inquiry and, or I'm gonna be away for 2 weeks starting next week, so I may pass that off to somebody else to do that. But for sure, we could, you know, at least have an initial conversation with somebody. Yeah, that's exactly right. With the woods weight, that's that's always the question.
If you're away, I'll offer to call the Realtor,
All right,
and we could put it on our agenda for March.
yeah, or if they are really like, you know, yeah, great, we'd love to do that. You know, maybe we could even do a site visit and stuff out there beforehand. Put it on the agenda. All right, thank you, Peter. So, all right, I think anything else? Thank you guys, Donna and Judy, for bringing up that because it certainly had been on my radar screen as well. When I saw that it was on the market. All right, and then you know, the other thing, you know, just pursuant to Town Pond is just to just always keep, I think, in the back of your mind that, you know, if we lose access through potentially or possibly, if we lose access through Old Town Hall, right now, I don't know that there's another access point to that. That would just be a shame. So, all righty.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. I don't think Michelle needs to do a roll call vote. Can we all just wave and say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, guests. And
When's our meeting in March? First Wednesday?
yeah, I think it's also the second, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All righty.
Aye.
Good
Have a good night. Thanks, everybody. Have a
night,
good night.
everybody.
Good night.
Night.